Garland says in part, quote, during your testimony, you sideswiped the obvious effect of your ill-conceived memorandum and the chilling effect that invoking the full weight of the federal law enforcement apparatus would have on parents' protected First Amendment speech. Local law enforcement and not the FBI are the appropriate authorities to address any local threats or violence. Joining us right now, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and author of the upcoming book, Do What You Said You Would Do, Fighting for Freedom in the Swamp. Congressman Jordan, good morning to you.
Good to be with you, Jan.
You are leading this effort calling for Attorney General Garland to withdraw that school board memo. Tell us more about that hearing when you confronted him. And I'm just curious, ultimately, do you really expect the FBI to investigate parents?
Well, that's what the memo said. Remember the timeline here. On September 29th, the National School Board Association, a left-wing political organization, asked the President of the United States to involve the FBI in local school board matters. 5 days later, the Attorney General does just that, issues his memo. Opening line of the memo, he said, we've seen an uptick in violence and threats against school board personnel. I asked him a simple question in the hearing. Where did you base that? What evidence did you see? What data did you use to make that statement? He said the only evidence he used was the school board's memo, letter itself. So now we have last Friday night, the school board apologizing for the letter they sent that was the basis for the memo that Mr. Garland put in play to start this task force and focus on local school board matters. I think it's time he rescind it. We'll see what he does, but the appropriate decision is for him to take that back in light of the School Board Association actually saying and apologizing for what they did.
And what do you think about these calls right now for the FBI to investigate threats against parents?
Yeah, I mean, it's a local law enforcement matter. It shouldn't be involved. We don't want any violence, of course, and if there is, they'll deal with it appropriately. But the fact that the Attorney General of the United States responded in that quick a fashion to a political organization's demand and request, and again, that now political organization has apologized for it, makes absolutely no sense. One of the lines in the memo from the Attorney General was, we're going to set up a dedicated line of communication for threat reporting, what I would term a snitch line on parents. So this is ridiculous. There is a chilling impact this would have on parents, but here's the good news. Moms and dads aren't going to take it, and they have stood up and spoke out loud and clear, and that's why the School Board Association, I think, realized what they had said about referring to parents as domestic terrorists was so wrong and why they apologized.
Yeah, and in that apology,
the Attorney General will do the same.
Yeah, and in that apology, I want to very quickly just, part of what they said was there was no justification for some of the language included in that letter. We deeply value not only the work of local school boards that make important contributions within our communities, but also the voices of parents. Well, what are you hearing from parents? Go ahead.
Well, what they also said in that letter, we regret and apologize for the letter. Later in the same paragraph, they said, we apologize for the stress this has put people under and the strain people have had because of it. So when you apologize twice in the same paragraph, that just doesn't happen in this environment around here. That's how bad this was. That's the uproar they heard from regular moms and dads out there who don't want this racist, anti-America curriculum taught to their children and have spoke up loud and clear about that. I think that's why they backed off so much.
Congressman Jordan, another big controversy on the Hill right now. NIH, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Of course, Fauci continues to deny any funding for gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab there. The NIH deputy director, though, said this. As sometimes occurs in science, this was an unexpected result of the research as opposed to something that the researchers set out to do, adding that EcoHealth failed to report this finding right away, as was required by the terms of the grant. Yeah. So now comes what you guys want to happen as a result of this, finding this information out, that in fact there was some gain of function as a result of some of the research from EcoHealth, which was funded in part from NIH.
It wasn't that they just didn't report it right away. They didn't report it for 22 months as they were required to under the grant proposal for getting our tax dollars. And during that 22-month time frame, they got $21 million more of the American taxpayers' money. So that, coupled with the fact it was gain-of-function research, coupled with the fact that Dr. Fauci for the last 2 years has misled the country saying this thing didn't come from a lab, when he knew clear back in January of 2020 when he got the email that said from one of the virologists biologists who get our tax dollars, Dr. Christian Anderson, that email said virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. That is a fancy way of saying this thing came from a lab. So he knew that from the get-go, but he downplayed that. Those of us who said that it came from lab, oh no, you're crazy conspiracy theorists, even though that's where all the evidence now points. So he misled us about the lab, he misled us about the gain of function, and the organization that got our money failed to report what happened in a prompt time frame, so much so that they didn't do it for 2 years. And now we find out last week as well that he's using our tax dollars to do research that treats animals, puppies, in an inhumane fashion. I think for all those reasons, Dr. Fauci should leave, should have resigned a long time ago because of all the ways he has misled the American public over the last 2 years.
What do you know about that, by the way? What do you know about some of that research that came about as a result of the Hill reporting from this nonprofit group that found out that, in fact, there were some dogs that were potentially used with taxpayer dollars on these experiments?
Not a whole lot. Just like with the gain of function research, just like with the whole lab leak issue, they've been pretty quiet and haven't said much about it. But we're going to investigate that issue as well. Again, as I said, Dr. Fauci has misled. I mean, this idea that this came from, as I said, I think a week or so ago, from a bat to a pangolin to a hippopotamus to Joe Rogan, and we all know that this thing, all the evidence suggests it came from a lab now funded by American taxpayers, a lab now that did gain of function research that they kept away from us as well. All this information where they've misled us. Why is this guy the highest paid official in our government? Why does he still have a job? Congressman, tell me about your new book, Do What You Said You Would Do, Fighting for Freedom in the Swamp. I think your viewers are going to enjoy the read. We take them through the big investigations we've had over the last several years, the IRS, the Benghazi investigation. Of course, we spend a lot of time on the impeachment investigation. We talk about the Freedom Caucus, how it was formed when we pushed Mr. Boehner out as Speaker. And then we spend a lot of time on an individual who actually did what he said he would do more than any president we've had, and that's our interactions with President Trump over the last 4 years. So I think your viewers are gonna like the read. They can get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble right now in a pre-order. So I think they'll enjoy it. All right, Congressman Jordan from the great state of Ohio, thanks for talking to us this morning. We appreciate it. You bet. Thank you. Still ahead, Facebook turmoil that